Hey, everybody, this is Peter Hernandez, and this is The Core Truth. And today I have Kellen Porter with me, our Chief Operating Officer in Florida, and just a amazing industry expert. I'm so glad to have you on the show, Kellen. It's wonderful. Welcome to The Core Truth.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's kind of fun. As a California guy, growing up in real estate, Peter Hernandez is a legend. Now I'm on the podcast with him, and
And I get to work with you,
across the
man.
country.
This is, I mean, think about it. We've
Pretty
never
cool.
worked together, and now we've been together for like about 5 months or so, and it's just been you've added so much to the company here at Douglas Elliman. It's really been fun to watch your fingerprint all over it and seeing the company change in so many positive ways. And we'll get into that a little bit on this call
Yeah.
because you're definitely having an influence, and it's really exciting.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
but
Happy to be
let's
here.
start. Let's start off just with let's kind of the landscape of the real estate world right now, and I think probably the conversation that's happening the most is the consolidation, maybe even the Compass Anywhere consolidation and things like that. And how do you think it's going to affect the market, brokerages? We can get into it one at a time. Agents. I mean, there's so many questions flying around the real estate space right now around this, and it's interesting,
Wait,
right?
did,
I mean, it's
did
like
something
never
happen?
have we seen anything this big before.
Right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's been the headline news for a little bit now. Obviously, Compass's acquisition of Anywhere, its 9 brands consolidating into one, become part of the new Compass with Christie's. It shakes the landscape. You now have an industry player that has about 351,000 agents, nationwide. And so that's something to take a look at. It's about 25% of the overall industry is now within this Compass landscape. And I think there's always a space for everybody in the industry. And so this will do well for a lot of people. And I think some people will find that it's not for them. But I think there's a number of reasons why something like this would happen, right? And from a policy perspective, you can look at some of the things that Compass has been able to do. This gives them a larger voice as it relates to a lot of the policies within NAR. They've been an outspoken opponent of clear cooperation, which on its core ideas was a great principle. I don't know that it was executed the best way, and certainly if you listen to Robert Refkin, he doesn't believe that it was. And so this gives them a larger voice in terms of sort of the real estate policy moving forward. And I think that was a big driver for it. I have great friends both at all of those brands that are now kind of one, and industry leaders and really thoughtful, smart people who have a myriad of takes on this. And I think it's really too early to tell exactly how it's going to affect people. I think we do a great job at Element of kind of blinders on and focus on what we're trying to do, which is not to be the largest real estate company. I kind of joke that, well, not joke, but I have a little saying in Florida that we have a small goal of just being the preeminent luxury residential real estate company to ever grace the face of the Sunshine State. Just that little goal.
Yeah,
So
I love that.
that involves, kind of our core principles of being in business with the best people, of providing the highest level of service to all of our clients. Not worried about growing the biggest, but it certainly is news that will continue to kind of shape the landscape. I think anytime an acquisition of this magnitude occurs, there's going to be change. We've heard a lot of there's not going to be change. It's just not possible. There's a financial aspect to an acquisition of this size, taking on a sizable amount of debt, some of it convertible debt, but debt nonetheless that they're going to have to tackle over time. And so it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, it definitely will. You mentioned NAR and clear co-op policy, which we might want to dig into that a little bit. And then they're also in a battle with Zillow too, from what is reported in the news. So they've got a couple of battles going on a couple fronts there. Let's
Yeah,
look
I
at
know.
NAR just for a second and just
Yeah.
see like clear co-op. Tell me what your thoughts on it and where you think it maybe NAR got it right, maybe where they got it wrong, and like if you even want to attack that conversation or not. But I mean, for me, I'll just share that, sellers should have the right to choose, but
That's
maybe
it.
not have any policies forced upon them. That would be my
Right.
my thought, just right off the top.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think that the seller needs to have the right to choose. I think if you look at clear cooperation, where they got it right is they wanted to prevent they wanted to make sure that everybody had a fair playing field as it related to real estate. Because if you take all the listings and you covet them and you put them in one area where only a particular set of buyers can purchase those properties or even know about them or see about them, well, that's not fair to the average consumer. And then the wealth gap grows. And real estate's one of the biggest and best ways in America in order to grow wealth. So the idea behind it was everybody gets access to the same opportunities within real estate. And so again, as a principle, it's a good idea. In terms of execution, it never really did what it was supposed to do. It created some, friction with sellers. There are times when private listings are important. You have a CEO who's working for a Fortune 500 company that's publicly traded on Wall Street. He may want to sell his property. He cannot let it be known that it's being sold because it could affect stock prices. There's reasons for that. High profile clientele who don't want people nosing around their property. They only want, qualified people. They don't want open houses. They want to do it on an exclusive level with only people that they know are qualified purchasers of a certain magnitude, a certain price point. Makes all the sense in the world. But for the most part, the idea is that if we're doing our job as real estate professionals, we should be exposing a seller's property to the largest buyer pool possible in order to get the highest price. It's just simple, right? It's if I'm going to show your property to 10 people or I'm going to show it to 10,000, the odds that I'm going to get a better price are when I expose it to 10,000 people. But I agree 100% with you that the seller should have that right to choose. It's a real estate industry professional's job to give them the information and let the seller make the choice. If the seller says, even if it's their own home, if they say, you know what, I don't want it to be on the MLS, I don't want my neighbors knowing, they don't even have to be a Fortune 500 CEO. If that's just what they want, they should be able to have that. And I think NAR with clear cooperation kind of took that away from us. And then they slowly said, oh, but you can do this. And there are ways around it if you do this. And, oh, you can do it. You can have an exclusive within your own brokerage. And I think Compass kind of said, well, does it have to be the same broker? Or can it just be, if we're all owned within Compass, can we do it? And that's not really the way the NAR rule is written. The way the NAR rule is written is that it's supposed to be relevant to that broker. And yet they kind of flew in the face of that. And I don't necessarily have a problem with them deciding to do that, because I do think that it's a bit of a broken rule. And they said, let's see what happens here. We have a system that we feel is the best thing for the clients, and we're gonna promote it. And NAR has enough problems on their hands. Quite frankly.
True. More things to focus on. Now, the Zillow conflict is kind of related to this in a sense, right? So Zillow saying, hey, if you're going to hold these things private, we're not going to let you put it on Zillow at all.
Right. Right. The irony is ripe for cutting. It's kind of crazy. There's long been this thought about how do you compete with Zillow. Because in reality, for real estate professionals like us, I mean, Zillow's a resource, but it's also something where they've taken our listing data that we were putting into, our multiple listing service, amalgamated that data, and then sold it back to us. So, from that principle, it's sort of like, where do you land on the Zillow end? Because no matter what you try to do, Zillow's still there. They're going to be the top search result. People are still going to use Zillow to find properties. It's user friendly, and they've done a great job of marketing themselves. Rich Barton's not a dumb guy, right? Expedia, had a hand in Netflix, Zillow. He knows what he's doing in terms of that space. Now that I know that he's out of Zillow, but that's what got it started. And the idea now that you're going to stop Zillow from marketing, your properties or selling them back to you. Again, I think this was an idea where, okay, we're going to go exclusive. And Zillow said, shoot, if they're going to go exclusive, we've got to combat this. So now it's become sort of a stick measuring contest of who, who's going to blink first when it comes to either exclusives or being on Zillow. And, I don't think, again, it's good for the industry, but they're trying to do whatever they can to protect their business model, which a lot of real estate professionals, if they took a step back, would realize is probably counteractive to what they've been doing all their lives.
It's interesting because years ago, I remember a couple of the brokers got together and they tried to pull the information back, but there was one major broker that didn't join and said, "You guys go do that. We're going to keep posting on Zillow," which gave them a competitive advantage in a way because it was a marketing tool. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, you need
the idea,
all or none, right?
so it's almost interesting to me that, what Compass is trying to do, almost in a sense, if everyone else stays in, kind of puts them at a marketing disadvantage in terms of the listings. And becomes maybe an argument at the listing table, like, hey, we do put on Zillow, or you know what I mean? And we do expose your property to more people because we want to get you the highest price. So there's a conversation there too. So it's very interesting, isn't it? It's like very it's an interesting stance and position they're taking.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to think on behalf of the consumer. Anybody would. And so if you've ever been a real estate agent, you'd be lying if you didn't say that you had a client call you and ask why their listing was showing up a certain way on Zillow, a third-party site that you have no control over, and yet you're hustling to figure out why it's showing 3.5 bathrooms instead of 4.5, like you'd put in. And so Zillow, it can be a resource because people are looking for properties there. They may be able to find yours, but again, it's not on your side. It's it's selling you back the data. They want the leads to come through them, so they can sell them to the agents who pay for the service.
Yeah. I mean, they say the milk's out of the carton, but I suppose the milk could be put back in if there was 100% consensus and agreement. The question is,
it's like the what's that meeting of what was it, Seven Families, the mafia thing back in the day?
Correct.
Like you need that.
Yeah.
You need all the top heads of the real estate industry to get together and say, you know what, we're not going to promote on Zillow. If all of them did that, that would basically be the only way that you would stop something like that.
That's pretty tough to do right now, especially for the smaller brokers that maybe don't have the wherewithal to market as well as like companies like Elliman, like we do, there we can really market things well. How do you think this whole consolidation? I mean, I was part of one fractioning that went off when, we founded Telus Properties, and then Partners Trust came out and Arrow came out, and then all these little companies come out, and then, we all end up selling and consolidating. Now we're consolidating again, and then they'll fraction off again. It's almost historical in what's happening, right? So there's opportunities that are created with consolidation. What opportunities do you see right now?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you see this large one, this big acquisition, and so that's kind of grabbing all the headlines. I do recognize, I think there's a lot of independent boutiques who are probably out there looking and saying, okay, what do I do now? In the face of the NAR lawsuits, right? And now in the face of a large acquisition like this, where do they find their footing? And I think you'll see more smaller independents kind of consolidating, becoming part of something larger, and in a positive way. I think the best way to do that, and the way that we look at it from a Douglas Elliman perspective, is we're going into new markets, and we anticipate being in a dozen more markets within a short order here, strategic markets. But we're looking for that right partner out there in the landscape, and in the right feeder markets for our clientele, where our clientele play, because we're not for everyone. We don't want to be in every major city or every city. I mean, we want to be in the ones that speak to our brand, which is, the ultra luxury real estate company, independent company in the world now. And so I think, we look at who's a great culture fit, who's going to add to what we're already doing. And I think we'll find some of that with our brand, with other brands, of being able to partner and give resources and tools and power of voice to companies that maybe don't have it, while still allowing them to have their independence, but being really augmented by the power that is Elliman. So I think you'll see that on a large scale, because, you've done it for years. I've done it. Running a brokerage is hard, and margins are thin. I mean, it looks glamorous, and we both know when you look at actually the overhead and the cost of running a brokerage based on, the earnings and the downward pressure that we're seeing now from the industry on commissions that agents are earning, a lot due to this lawsuit and some of the fray around that. So we have a downward pressure on the professional services fee, what agents are getting on each deal. And then you see shrinking margins on the brokerage side in terms of how we're able to, what splits an agent's getting versus the brokerage. It makes it really difficult to continue to excel and provide value while being profitable. Let's not joke. I mean, we're in a for-profit business. And I think that's something that we've done really exceptionally well at Elliman, to have, $135 million in the bank and zero debt. Like, there aren't companies that can say that, right? So we're in a unique position as it relates to future acquisitions and partnerships that allow us to provide resources to other independents and bring them into something that's really exciting and cool, because we're doing things in a different way. Again, blinders on, focused on what we do best.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting you say that, because, being part of many acquisitions, back when Cole Baker purchased John Douglas, and when I was at Cole Baker president, we purchased Strata, Douglas Elliman. I've been like maybe 4 or 5 different, times where we've merged or consolidated, things like that. And one of the most difficult things, Kellen, is, and you said it, is, you didn't say it exactly, but I heard between the lines, there's this cultural component.
Yeah.
When you combine all of these different organizations together, you're mixing and matching cultures that may or may not mix and match. Right. And then you've got all kinds of systems that may or may, and you may have different philosophies. Like, what I love about Elliman is that we're in luxury markets or tax-free markets. You know what I mean? And that is our focus. And we know who we are. Like you said, blinders on, in a way, which I think gives us a real Elliman advantage. I mean, it's because we're not having to deal with this philosophy, that philosophy, this price range, that price range, all these different things, this kind of an agent, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, in the United States, we're not franchise owned. I mean, we are an independent organization. We're publicly traded, but we're privately run. We are a standalone luxury independent. I mean, for the last decade, we've had the highest average sales price, in Florida last year, of the major brands in Florida last year. I think it was a shade under 1.9 million. We've eclipsed 2.1 million, 2024, and 2025, we've just eclipsed over 2.1 million as our average sales price. So we're very cognizant of who we are and who we're not. Oftentimes in a franchised model, you're only as good as the local leadership level, which can be great. I think there's also an immense amount of pressure to expand into ever more territories and different things, because the parent company loves the franchise fee that they're collecting from those folks. And so that, and what it ends up doing, and I've seen it at some of our colleagues, some of our professional colleague brokerages, is it dilutes the brand, and it becomes less of what it was before and more about the underlying numbers. And I think what we've done a really good job of with Elliman is staying true to our core principles and focus. And we always will, with Michael Leibowitz's leadership. I mean, that's what he's focused on. Again, not being the biggest, being the best, being in business with the right people, going into the strategic markets that serve our clients first and foremost. We could be anywhere that we want to be like that, and convert people over. But we're very methodical and deliberate as we approach, who we're looking for when it comes to partnership. That doesn't mean that we're, stagnant. We're definitely growing. Like I said, we'll see a lot of growth from Elliman over the next 36 months, which will be very, very exciting. And I'm personally excited to be in some of those markets that I know so well, that I know that our clients also are waiting for that Elliman advantage to be right next door to them.
Yeah, I know. And we've come through some, interesting economic times, and we've come through it in a very, very strong financial position, like you said, with no debt, money in the bank, where a lot of our competitors and firms are heavily in debt, and they're going to have to focus on that, where we're going to focus probably on growth at this point, is the way I'm looking at it. We'll be able to expand now and grow and take advantage of this, where maybe other people are going to have to figure out how to cut, how to fire, how to roll agents back, whatever they need to do to make things work. we're in a very, very unique position, I think, in the real estate industry brokerage world, that we have no debt, we have money in the bank, and we have, like you said, a sort of good financial discipline and maturity around us, economic maturity around us, that I think is going to put us in a really good position for this next few years.
Agreed. With a healthy appetite for expansion, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the key. I mean, we've got the right players in place. We've added in a number of skilled professionals from around the industry to help us on kind of this path to Elliman 2.0 that we kind of talk about internally. But it really is. It's sort of this change, this elevation of a really amazing brand that's been around since 1911, and now it's like, watch what we do next, and it's really exciting to be part of something like that. Absolutely.
I agree with you. Well, I think the other big topic besides consolidation right now, Kellen, is, and you're a big proponent of this, is AI and the technology that could be available to our agents. And I know you've got a new tech platform coming out that you're excited about, that I'm excited about. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit, because I think AI is going to really help the agents that learn how to use it. No question about it.
You nailed it. And that's the thing. I mean, the AI, the Terminator, Skynet, people worry a lot about AI. AI is going to replace this. It's going to replace that. There's industries in which AI will replace some inefficiencies, certainly. I don't believe that AI is going to replace you. I do believe, if you're a real estate professional, that real estate agents who harness the power of AI will replace those who do not, to a large extent, because it's just the speed of computing power. And so, AI has been tacked onto everything. It's really gained a lot of popularity and traction since 2017, and then more and more and more. And you hear so much about it. There's a really interesting graphic that you can actually pull up that shows, I believe it's Lake Michigan, and it talks about computing power. And it starts with a liter of water, and computing power grows exponentially every year. So they took, I think the first year the computer came out was like 1900. So they took a liter of water and they exponentially increased the amount of water that was in Lake Michigan. And they did so the same way that computing power year by year would exponentially grow. And it was really eerie, because it was 2025 that Lake Michigan filled up with water in this graphic. And it's also essentially saying that is when computing power will be the same as the human brain. And so here we are. That's why we're seeing so much more with AI that it's able to do than even 2 years ago, or a year ago, or 3 years ago. Our new CTO, Chris Reyes, and we kind of nerd out on this a lot about what's next for AI, because you wouldn't think what AI is able to do today was even possible 5 years ago. You'd heard about it. You talked about it. At a previous brokerage, I had an AI course that I would teach, and even some of this stuff, I could never fathom something like Chat GPT now taking on particular personalities and asking, do you like this personality? Do you like this writing style? So, AI is being tacked onto everything. Most technology that was out there, whether it's a CRM or anything else, will add on something called, they'll say, oh, well, now we have this AI feature. They've added on AI because they have to. And it's really easy. The tokenization of AI has become really cheap. So it used to cost a lot of money per token. Now it doesn't cost nearly as much money per token. And token is how you get the data from AI, but it costs a lot more tokens per query, per ask. Mm-hmm. So without getting into the granular aspects of it, what I wanted to look at in terms of real estate professionals and an element was all these different tools that utilize AI. What is helping the real estate agent be more productive, more efficient, so that they can focus on what matters most in their clients? And that was the key. We want AI to augment what our real estate professionals are already doing, so that they can be more efficient and they can spend more time actually with the clients. So we, co-developed with Simplicity USA, Ellie AI. Ellie AI is by far, and yes, I'm biased, but I'm allowed to be, the best agent productivity tool that I've ever seen in my life. When we first started it, it was the concept was, it'll be able to do listing descriptions for you, and lifestyle maps and pull comps. And now it is a full-on CRM built-in learning module. It is the only AI tech tool in real estate built by AI. It started from the ground up. It's not an add-on. So we taught this platform how to think about real estate. It plugs into almost every MLS in the nation. So it gets data feeds directly from the MLS. It can pull instantaneous comps for our agents, create beautiful lifestyle maps. A lifestyle map shows where, all information on all the different schools, restaurants, recreational activity, museums, art, culture, everything around an area, which is so useful when you have a buyer who's coming from out of town and they want to know, well, what's around the property that I'm looking at buying. You can create a beautiful branded lifestyle map to them instantaneously. The comps are precision done. They keep refining. You can ask for information on off-market properties. You can pull permits on this thing, Peter. So, especially in Florida, sadly being affected by 3 hurricanes, 18 months ago, or over the last 18 months, that you can say, do these houses have any open permits? Those are really important things. And the reason that it's effective is it allows you to get the information that you need and then go and focus on your clients. We've already had success stories where agents have pulled comps on the way to a listing presentation using LEAI and gotten the listing, right? Where they've talked to a buyer and the buyer has said, well, what's it worth? And they pull comps within 3 minutes and send them over a beautifully branded comp tool that then they're able to say, okay, well, if you think it looks like that's the right price, let's make an offer. So, I think, again, our goal is to equip our agents with the tools and resources that they need to be the most efficient version of themselves so that they can focus on what matters to us and to them, which is delivering white glove service to their clients. The administrative tasks we want to take primarily off of their desk and use AI and use other technologies to really accelerate their business, help them grow. So I'm a huge proponent of AI. It just needs to be used in the right way, and obviously any data that you pull from LEAI, you're the professional. So you review it, you make sure that its accuracy is there, and you still have to explain the story and tell your clients why that data matters.
So if you were like coaching an agent, maybe in preparation of using LEAI or any AI tool, how would you instruct them to learn about AI? What would you say they should do right now to get up to speed?
Well, AI is phenomenal because it's so intuitive, and that's the great thing about Ellie. That's Chat GPT. It's natural language search. So it's really asking a question the way that you would ask anything in that natural language. Like with Ellie, you could say, show me comps for 123 Main Street in Naples. It'll pull up comps for 123 Main Street. It gets rid of that filtering thing. So I think in terms of learning about AI, it's just allowing yourself to have the curiosity. It's not some big, scary, difficult thing. I mean, if you go to chatgpt.com and just type anything in, you'll see how user-friendly and intuitive AI is. If you go to Google now, Gemini pops up first whenever you search anything. That's an AI platform. It's taking the way that you search for data and it's trying to figure out how to articulate a response back to you that is digestible for you. So, if I'm telling someone how to use any platform, any AI platform is only as good as the prompts that you use. So, making sure that you're asking the questions that you really want the answers to. And that when you get the first answer, don't just take that as the word, be skeptical, ask it follow-up questions, and AI will refine and make sure that you're getting the most accurate data at all times. But it is really natural language, intuitive. It's future. LEAI has a speech function where you can just talk directly to it. You can call Ellie. Ellie can do, set appointments for you. She can do anything. So the way that it's grown, market insights, having that at your fingertips, giving you mortgage data, finding a property and saying, my client is able to bring 10% down. What's the mortgage going to be on it with today's rates? Being able to provide that information to your client instantaneously. That's why technology is good. It's because it gives you the ability to get the information from your fingertips to theirs as quickly as possible so that you can move on to the more important things.
I love that. So the industry is changing, unquestionably. I mean, so many different ways. let's start off with brokerages. How do you think brokerages like Elliman should adapt and prepare itself for the next 10 years in terms of being relevant? And then let's dive into what agents need to do right now, because I think both conversations are truly important.
Well, I think Elements has been taking the first steps, right? They're looking at, where does it make sense for us to be strategically, geographically, so our physical footprint, where do we want that to be? It's an easy answer to just say, let's be everywhere and let's go do that immediately. It's the wrong answer most of the time. It'll with the brand. So I think we've done a good job of just kind of focusing in on, what does growth look like for us, making sure that it's in alignment with our culture, with what we stand for, not wavering on those principles, but not being shy about the fact that, we do want to grow. And then I also think adapting, this level of technological advancement, like, it's moving fast. Like I was talking about, the computing power that got to 2025 and then had the same capacity as the human brain. Well, it's still exponentially growing into 2026 and then 2027, 2028. It's fathomable that at one point you could just tell AI to create Ellie, and AI could create a whole platform like what we're using. So the evolution of these things, it's really important to be on the forefront of them and understand as quickly as things change in that space. You need to be aware of it, but it doesn't replace what you do best. And so I think, for our brokerage, for the best brokerages, maintaining the focus on the client is going to be key, right? Our goal is to provide a white glove level service to our clients that they've come to know and expect from a brand like Douglas Elliman since 1911. And so the way that we do that in terms of leadership is we try to emulate that to the agents, to the real estate professionals that we have working with us from our service level, whether it's in our marketing department, our administrative department, our management department, or our executive department. Like, we believe that we're in partnership with every single one of our agents. We want to see them grow as much as they want to see themselves grow. And we do that by emulating that white glove service that we expect them to give to their clients. I think if you do that, you keep the focus on, providing great experiences, great service. That's going to be the key moving forward, because there is going to be a lot of noise. There is going to be a lot of misinformation, and technology is moving very quick. So, your clients want to know that they're in the right hands. And I think you do that by being authentic. There's two AIs, there's artificial intelligence, there's authentic intelligence. Authentic intelligence is what AI will never replace. That's your ability to connect on a human, emotional level with your clients, build those relationships, maintain integrity in those relationships, and help them make the best real estate decisions for them. We can't forget, at the end of the day, we, take a pretty easy exam when you're really thinking about it in coursework, in order to get a license that allows us to help people with the most important financial decision, either of their life or at least the next 7 to 10 years before their next one. Right? And so we have a great responsibility with that. And I think when you maintain that focus on providing great service and a great experience, all the noise can be around. You can use tech to augment your skill set, but that's where the rubber meets the road, is still providing a great service to your clients.
Well, and you nailed it, because the agents have their clients, which is the customer, the consumer, the person listing their house, the person buying the house. We have our client, who's the agent. And I was thinking that a lot of companies, they lose touch with their agents. They go into the ivory tower and they forget what it's like to be on the street, which Elliman has never done. Because right. Elliman, the executives are not just running the business like a CEO. They're all thinking like an agent. What would an agent need in this situation? How can we help our agents make more money? What do we need to do to service our agents better? So there's almost two hats we have to wear, obviously, as leaders of Elliman. The CEO we have to run it like a business for sure. But on the other hand, if we lose touch with our agents, you know what, we can lose our agents. And the reality is we want to stay there.
Right. It was fun. I was just doing a course for our brokerage here in Naples, and it was bringing me back, because a lot of what I was talking about, it was sort of the 6 success pillars, and really getting back to basics and things like, moving from entrepreneurial to purposeful and focusing on your 20% of activities. And it reminded me of my history of being an agent in a number of different cities and areas. And I think that's really core to what Elliman does well, is run a great business, but realize, like, you have to think like the agent. These are independent contractors. They're entrepreneurs. They are business owners of their own making. And some of them need help running their business. Some of them need, guidance in terms of how they run a more efficient or productive organization. Some of them are independent agents doing it by themselves. Some of them are growing teams, and being able to speak to them and get with them on their level, I think is really important for any brokerage. And oftentimes, why we're successful is because we do have that sort of interaction and that white glove service to our agents that I'm not sure you can deliver if you have 350,000 agents that you're trying to do it for, right? I mean, we're here trying to make sure that each one of our agents feels that they have the connectivity to our leadership team and also to every one of the other associates around our network every single day, so they have the resources that they need, not only to grow in their real estate sales business, but in their actual businesses as they grow a business, and then also in their lives. And I think that's why it's a very refreshing opportunity. And I think other real estate brokerages should focus on that as well, in terms of providing that service to your agents, not forgetting, no matter how big you get or how small you are, that at the end of the day, we're only as good as our people, right? And you want to be in business with people that when they hold your business card, when they, hand a business card that is the same as yours to somebody else, that they reflect the core values and principles that you believe in. And then I think you're going the right way.
I love that. And it's interesting because as executives need to also remember their agent hats, wouldn't it be smart for agents to develop an executive hat so that they can run their businesses like a business? And I'm sure you shared a lot about that today in your class that you were giving agents.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Agents to a large extent, when they get into the industry, I hear it a lot. You've interviewed thousands of agents. I've interviewed thousands of agents who, at all different levels of their career. And oftentimes we hear, well, I got into real estate, I can set my own schedule. I've got the flexibility. I get to do this, I get to do that. And then you kind of challenge them and you go, okay, but you want to make $500,000 a year. Who else makes $500,000 a year? They go, well, attorneys, doctors, boom, 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 wealth advisors, stockbrokers. Okay, what's an attorney's hours? Who makes $500,000 a year? 60, 70 hours a week, 55, 60 hours a week. Why are we special? Right. So, I mean, that was a lot of what it was talking about, is that if you want to have that type of income, you want to do that, you need to be able to dedicate yourself to the craft and be really, really good at the core. I think the core 5 things that all real estate professionals do really well every single day. And that's really getting into flow with people that you don't know. So creating new relationships every single day, following up with relationships that you've already created, going on appointments, whether they're buyer consultations, listing consultations, meeting somebody, to give them a real estate landscape or a review of their real estate portfolio, negotiating contracts, and then really practicing those scripts and dialogues so that when you're in those conversations, you know how to answer the questions that are inevitably coming. And so that was kind of the idea, is if you've got to be able to do those 5 things every single day, but that's only 20% of your day, but it's the most important 20%. So getting them focused on how you actually grow a business in real estate and moving to a purposeful world versus just being entrepreneurial was a big aspect that we talked about today.
So this has been a great conversation. I know we're coming to the end here. Let me ask you one more question to maybe end on, and that is, where do you think we're heading this year in terms of maybe the business in general? Like, is it going to be a busy year, do you think? And number 2 is any industry predictions, any industry changes you see coming down?
Yes. So I think 2026 is going to be a great year. I really do. I think that we, at the beginning of 2025, there was a lot of uncertainty across the United States, certainly here in Florida, around what was going to happen with the tariffs. We hadn't seen tariffs like that ever. So there was a number of people who kind of took a pause there and said, I'm going to sit back and see how this is going to affect things. What we've seen is continued growth. I mean, I think there are different sectors and different price points that are growing differently in our varied markets. But overall, we saw growth. We saw growth at Elliman. In Florida, we exceeded our production by about $1 billion in sales volume year over year. So, with pairing in new development and our brokerage business, we'll do around $13 billion, which is up about $1 billion. So we saw that growth, and I anticipate more continued growth. The year has already started better than 2025, and I expect that to continue through 26. I think we'll get some good news on the mortgage front, although I feel like a parrot saying that, because I think we've been saying that for a couple of years. But I think now we see a pathway forward in terms of maybe some not massive, I'm not saying a point or anything like that, but 25, 50 basis points, something like that over the next year, which will loosen things. I think a large number of I think it was something like 85% of homeowners now have an interest rate under 4.5%. So it's tough to get people who have like that 2.7 that they got during the COVID years of 2021 to jump out of that home and jump into a 6.7% mortgage for something smaller and pay the same amount. I think we're going to see that lessen a little bit, and 2026 is going to be a really phenomenal year for real estate across North America, and certainly in the markets that we service at Elliman and the ones that we're moving into. As far as the industry itself goes, I expect to see more consolidations. I expect to see some acquisitions, small, medium, large. I think it's just the way the industry is going. Again, the downward pressure on commissions from the professional services fee, the margins within brokerage, the expanded costs of running a brokerage, it just is going to make all the sense in the world. But I hope that, for the most part, some of these great independents maintain, because I think they're good for the local communities. And I think the large brands will find their footing. This large Compass Anywhere acquisition, there will be agents who thrive in that environment. Just as there will be leadership who thrive in that environment. And I think there will be agents and leadership who decide, I feel like I don't want to be one of 350,000, and they opt for something that aligns with their goals more. So I think you'll see a lot of movement in 2026. And I think that's, fresh starts and change like that is always a good thing. It can be uncomfortable, but change is inevitable. And so I'm sure one prediction that I'm 100% sure of is something with a lot of gravitas that I'm not even thinking about will occur in 2026.
Right.
So, I think we as professionals, we just, try to maintain as high a level of kind of industry understanding, service that we can, and keep moving forward with it.
I love it. Kellen, it's been really fun talking with you. And I've got a whole bunch more stuff I want to go down the road with. I'm going to let you go get back to work, but maybe we could bring you back. I sort of was thinking about, as we were talking, reinvention, rebranding. I mean, there were so many ideas that came to my head, and I was thinking about sprinkles failing, and I was thinking about Peloton recovering, and I'm thinking about all of these things going on in the world out there that are showing the power of reinvention.
I love that.
Or not.
I'd love to be back.
Or not.
Or not reinvention, right? And what
Yeah.
that looks like, and how, and it's applicable across, a lot of different industries. So I appreciate being on the
we
show.
can take that subject a little bit next time.
Sure.
Thank you very much, everybody, for being on The Core Truth. This is Kellen Porter from Florida. You can reach out to him. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. And thank you, and we'll be back soon with another Core Truth.